Okay, we're
monetize
approaching
this.
the limits of free use now.
Yep.
And by this point, I assume Mike's cut off this part of the audio file, Rob. Anyway.
Oh, that's too funny. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. The last time we included non-free music in an episode, YouTube was like, "Nope, can't play Natasha Bedingfield in this." I was like, "Oh."
Wait, what Natasha Bedingfield was this?
No, I don't. I think it was actually Sarah Bareilles, if I recall correctly. But
because I thought it was that that we are still young one.
I think it was like, if I recall correctly, it was episode 7 or 8. It was one of the ones Carolyn was on, and then Carolyn had, I'm remembering like back 3 years now, but Carolyn had tech problems of some kind, and so we had to do like a break mid-episode, and I just played music, and then it got flagged, of course, because it was like an entire song.
See, I think this was within fair use.
No, fair use is like 3 or 4 seconds.
So,
it's
topic. I'm assuming we all listened to HI about when it comes to like parody videos.
And H3 Productions.
Yeah, so their current is related to if the parodied or replication can replace experiencing the original content.
That's like specific to reaction videos, though.
The way I see it, if people want to, they could listen to this episode instead of listening to Green Day "Wake Me Up When September Ends," copyright circa 1995 or something.
What? 1995?
Maybe not that old.
You think you were 7?
Or I would argue that replace.
I agree.
Because listen to that as a junior high child.
That was also the highest fidelity you'd ever get. Was through through speakers, through the internet. So this is going to be an episode. I have no idea what's happening.
Sure is.
I don't even know. Apparently, Nick's internet is terrible quality. Mike, we don't really know because it's supposed to be good, but he's not. He got the HD symbol, so who knows?
Oh, it's good. Trust me. You've ever seen.
We do have some follow-up to do from the summer. Like this episode is called the Back from Summer podcast extravaganza.
Excellent.
And so I thought I could summarize at least the future chat Unwind media part of my summer by saying SpaceX landed several more rockets. Several more bottles of Soylent were consumed. And the last part in the notes here is that I have no idea what city Nick is in. He could be anywhere in Alberta almost.
What if I'm not in Alberta?
No, you're in Alberta, but I don't know where. I'm fairly confident.
How do you know? Yeah. I'm in Calgary.
Okay.
Working at a lab near the airport. Nice. And also near the Minhas Brewery. It's a good spot.
Sounds pretty good. So
I've only actually been here like 3 weeks though.
Right. So you don't have the lay of the land yet.
Yeah. Once I moved to Edmonton, like Calgary was completely swept from my mind. I was all trying to commute and I was like, what is this light rail that they have? Yeah, it was crazy.
That's the name of a beer.
Light rail?
Mm-hmm.
Did you forget how to speak English? Confused.
Just a little bit. They don't speak English up in Edmonton. It's actually a slight regional dialect. They don't call it Edmonton. They call it Edmonton. Emminton. Edmonton.
Kind of like Toronto.
Toronto.
There's only one T.
Apostrophe Ranna. Or Calgary.
Rob, you still said Toronto.
Did I?
Yeah, you said Toronto.
Toronto?
You did a bit of a T still.
No.
So
See, and Calgary has only one A.
no, Calgary is Kyalgree. Calgary.
Yeah, Calgary.
Yeah. Right. One A.
Carmel.
Calgary. I'll just sit here for the rest of the episode mulling over the names of different cities. Not Vancouver, but Vancouver. Similarly, not Bancroft, but Bancroft.
Right.
Or as one of our friends pointed out in second year, it's not Belleville, it's Belleville.
Belleville. I concur.
On a related note, Maria started hearing me say a boat and house.
A boat and house? Going to order a house to go a boat?
I never noticed myself saying that before, but when she brings it up, I'm like, holy crap, I did say that. And
Mike, are you going to go to the show in the snow?
And also on an even more tangentially related note, Emma says things like can and hand
as opposed to the usual.
It's a more stressed and nasally sound.
And?
Yeah, like can.
So I have a story about that syllable too. So our old roommate from Sri Lanka, an accent, obviously, but, well, not obviously, but she had an accent. And so we have the dog trained so that if she drops the ball like too far away from you, I actually trained her, and I'm pretty excited about this. You reach your hand out all the way, make a grabbing motion, and say, Bailey, I can't reach. And so then she picks it up and drops it closer to you. But when Damagi said it, like her English has almost a British accent to it. So she'd say, Bailey, I can't reach. And Bailey would just like look at her like, I don't know what you're saying. And so eventually we said, try saying it like can't reach, like put a Y in there. And so she goes, okay, Bailey, I can't reach. And Bailey's like, oh, I got this. Picks up the ball and moves it towards her. And then like Damagi just sat at the table for like 5 minutes giggling. He's like, Mommy, I can't hear you.
So Nick, are you available for training other dogs? Because my dog is an ass and he holds the ball. He will not let it go. You have to steal it from him. And if I want him to go get a ball that I can't reach, I have to say, I'm going to get it. And then he'll immediately run over and get it first and then keep it.
So, I mean, part of that training, and this is true almost of all dogs, is they have to be motivated.
Mm-hmm.
So Bailey and Shetland sheepdogs in general are very motivated to please you.
Right.
And so it makes them easier to train that way. But Bailey specifically is also highly motivated by play.
Right.
Like you just have to stop playing if she doesn't do what you want.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you're in the mood to like tug of war it, like you can do that. But if you want Teddy to drop it, you don't take it from him.
Right. Well, he doesn't get, he's kind of on that because he doesn't get the concept of drop it so I can throw it again, but he will bring it over right to your hand and even like hit you in the hand with it, but he won't let it go. He wants you to either try and take it from him. And once you get it from him, he's immediately like, okay, you're going to throw it. I'm ready. Go. And then we can repeat that pattern over and over. But the only problem is that he won't drop it. He'll just bump you with it.
No, that's the default for most dogs.
Yeah. It's very annoying because I just want him to drop it and then I'll throw it.
I mean, what you can do, and this is Rob, what you're going to want to do is you kind of grab them by the back of the jaw, right? Put your pressure there, and their jaw is going to want to open, see? means they drop the ball, pick up the ball, you throw the ball, and you just do that until Teddy drops the ball for you. Dropping the ball for you is something I want people to do in general. Really, what Teddy needs to do for you.
Right.
Oh yeah.
I have noticed that if I take both hands and I grab the ball like from the back half, that's the part that's in his mouth, like I grab both sides of his jaw, I can pull and he'll usually let it go much easier, but he definitely doesn't drop it unless I really yank on it. But that's good advice.
Now that depends, Rob. Do you have more willpower than this dog does?
Sometimes he has more.
Because you can also just
right.
wait until he drops the ball.
Yeah.
Pick up the ball and throw it.
Yeah. Oh,
it's got to be immediate.
Yeah.
Just don't engage, Rob. And make sure that nobody else engages too, because that'll totally screw it up.
Right. I'll give those a try then, and I'll report back for sure.
Okay. It's all operant training, Rob.
Yeah.
You can do this.
Mm-hmm.
You took Psych 101 or 1101. Possibly 1301.
I definitely took that class. It was in a 3-hour class at night, and I definitely never stayed for the second half.
Robert!
You definitely got course credit.
So yeah, I remember a lot of it, but I never learned half of it.
That's like me with my philosophy class. I took a nighttime philosophy class. I mean, it was evening. And there were like 15 people in it. I remember taking it. I remember talking about stuff. I even remember writing a couple papers, but I remember nothing from it.
Yeah.
University, I took a psychology course because I had taken no electives like all university. Graduate. And so I took a Psych 101 course. I actually got top marks in the class, basically because I wasn't a frosh.
Makes sense, actually.
It was on one specific exam, but it was like I went to class and I did the readings. A+ after that.
That makes sense, actually. So we do, despite having a lack of things to talk about, we do have some things that I at least wanted to talk about. I have no idea what you guys want to do. But I think before we actually get into the show, we should confirm that we are actually doing what we have started to do, which is venture into not a future chat, not an East Meets West, not any other podcast, but I do feel like talking about philosophy, talking about the pronunciation of words, these are seeds of thought, so to speak. And so this podcast will probably become packaged up as a Seeds of Thought episode, which is the new podcast that I launched. Is that okay with
what?
you?
When? Where?
Well, on Unwind Media.
This is actually news to me. I don't know if you told Mike or not, but this is news to me.
Well, I saw tweets and Facebook posts about it.
Mm-hmm. Which
I have not been on Twitter or Facebook.
And I'm not promoting it yet other than doing those things. So I am fully okay with that because it's a soft launch. This is not like the Unmade podcast where they put 3 or 4 in the can and then released one.
So this is a 10-play launch.
Yes.
This is a very soft launch.
It makes me feel better that having been a guest on Fake It twice, those episodes are now legacy episodes.
They are legacy episodes, yeah. The first
so
9
pretty excited about that.
Are considered beta episodes in this feed, 0.1 through 0.9.
Yeah, I like to think that a motivation behind this new podcast of yours.
Yeah, I mean the idea that I have been thinking of is that that first podcast that I had was called Fake It, and having now faked it until I've made it, this new podcast, I have in fact made it. What
did you make? Is it just the new podcast?
No, it. Like I have made it. Like I'm now
Interesting.
here.
Just
I've
a new
arrived.
podcast.
What
Yeah.
are the viewership numbers that qualify or quantify making it?
It's a state of being, and I feel like I have achieved it.
Cool.
The altogether, there's a podcast, which is called Seeds of Thought, which apparently this is going to be an episode of. There is a YouTube channel which I posted one video on this past week, and there's the rebranding of the website which I launched last April, which is called Thought Grapes, which is the same name as the YouTube channel, because I like the grape theme. As I discussed with Mike when I was trying to brainstorm names, it
You definitely liked the grape theme.
there's a lot of branding opportunity, and the domain was available. So
I could not pull you away from the grape theme at all.
I'm very
Personally,
excited.
I would have gone with Barley, but you are the what was your title that I had? The Tyrant
person.
of Unwind Media?
Yes, Overthrow Rob. That was the name of the channel?
Hashtag overthrow Rob.
Now, to be clear, this new branding, you've retconned.
Yeah.
You're riding its coattails, and people who would come expecting fake it pointed.
So as far as I know, it's just Pocket Casts that didn't make the transition. So I also don't know what's going to happen with new episodes, because if you're only seeing old ones, you might not be redirected to the new feed.
So
So
let
I
me
really
check to
don't
see
know.
if it's changed. I will check.
Probably won't have changed, but it's odd. Nick, I just checked, and thoughtbarley.com is available. So if you want to make that website happen, Vodka and Equations could become Thought Barley.
No, Vodka and Equations is already. Sorry, you actually caught me mid chewing peanut butter.
That's okay.
No, Vodka and Equations is very definitely what that blog will be called.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying you brought up Thought Barley as a branding opportunity, and I'm presenting it to you as being available.
You like wine over beer, Rob? Is that what you're telling me?
I don't think so. Is barley used in wine?
No, but grapes are.
Well, in that
You can have
sense,
barley wine, can't you?
Oh man, do you want to talk about barley wine? Because that's a whole other thing.
Well, I'm just trying to clarify here because you just quickly said no when
It's not wine.
my understanding of it was different. Oh,
No,
There we go.
it's a very different beverage.
kind of like ginger beer, not beer. Root beer, not beer. Beer nuts, not beer.
Peanut butter, not beer. Coffee, not beer.
Peanut butter, not butter. So did they?
Wow.
Whoa, dude.
Mike's showing a screenshot.
Don't go there. Well, it's not a screenshot. It's live.
Well, a
and
screen
It's not.
grab.
It's not updated.
Okay,
It's
so
not updated.
So
Still
we've
says
learned today that
fake it.
Pocket Cast doesn't respect 302 redirects. At some point, I'm going to change from a 302, which is a temporary redirect, to a 301, which is a permanent redirect. And then we'll have to see if it respects those.
Half in on this rebranding, Rob? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, I wanted to see what would happen if I did a temporary one first, if that would change everybody over. Then
No.
at a certain point, FeedBlitz, the feed reader that I use, they have a 30-day redirect thing where for 30 days it will just say like all traffic redirect to this new address, and then it'll shut off. And so I'm doing the temporary one for a while, and then I'll do that 30-day migration thing.
Gotcha.
So we'll see.
In the meantime, I won't be listening to these episodes.
Well, that's what I mean. And you don't
Until-
even get the new ones because somehow they're not in the feed. I think I might have paused the feed. Is that what happened? Maybe? I don't know. It's all very odd. Very odd. Have you tried to download the episodes? Do they download?
I have not tried to download the episodes.
I'd have to think they probably wouldn't.
They're just direct links to media files, aren't they?
Right, but if the link has changed, which maybe it hasn't.
Like through the Unwind Media site?
No, I mean to the media files, to their location. Maybe they haven't changed. No, I guess they wouldn't have changed. I'd still be curious to know if they actually download, because it seems like it would be weird if they did. So we've decided this is the Seeds of Thought podcast. I propose, getting too far into the federal government. I'm now going to propose the motion to enter the main part of the episode. Is that okay with everyone?
I second the motion.
Great.
I
Mike?
object.
Damn it,
Results
Mike.
are 2-1. Motion carries.
So
Can I be speaker of the podcast?
No, I don't think
Damn
that's a good idea. Will never ever get done.
You just have to like address everything you say to me, and if you and Mike get in an argument, it has to be all like through me. The honorable member from way too south in Calgary would like to address the honorable member from not actually downtown, but not in the suburbs either of Ottawa.
Phrase it more as like downtown.
Downtown?
Air quotes.
Who's going for it?
So, the first. I thought that might have been coming, and it was.
Yep.
The first thing I want to talk about, since this is a back from summer extravaganza, is what we all did this summer. From the beginning of July, when I published my first Samsung review, to the end of July, when I published my second Samsung review, a lot of things have happened and have changed, for me at least. And I feel like probably for you guys as well. So, Mike, I'm going to start with you. What are your highlights that you'd like to share from the summer?
Probably the main one is that I camp now. I didn't used to camp.
I camp.
Maria,
Not only
Maria
you
has
did camp,
motivated
but
me.
you now are a camper.
If you say so.
Well, you just said it, so.
Oh no, you said that. I just use it as the something infinitive.
Yeah, but you didn't say I camped.
Word.
You said I camp, as in that
The
is your
speaker
state of
would
being.
encourage Mike to move on with the story.
I guess.
It's not going to get any better from here. I hadn't really seen the appeal of camping. Maria's like, we should camp. I was like, oh, okay. The thing for me was just there's so many variables with weather and just being a pain in the butt to set up. But I mean, like the weather worked out and it's fairly easy to set up. It was good. Nice change.
You're right.
From
That story
what we
did
normally
not
do.
get better.
I did. That's what I didn't promise it would. So, I mean, I want to temper the expectations, and I'm glad
Well, I
those
mean,
expectations were
What
met.
is camping but like setting up for a few days in the woods or
Mhm.
like woods equivalent?
Yep.
It's just
Rob,
kind of
or Nick, you don't have to.
instead of going outside
tell
and
me.
being in the city, you go outside and you're on a campsite. It's kind of nice. You can rest and recharge.
Mhm.
Like we used to do like hostels and stuff. I don't know if you have hostels out in the east, Rob.
I don't think so.
We probably
It's not a
do
thing.
somewhere in the north, probably northish, closer to Elliott Lake and the lakes. So like you just basically go and you bring all the same stuff you would with camping, like clothes and food and whatever, but you don't have to set up your site because it's essentially like a cabin, or a motel type setup, depending on the, I guess.
Yeah.
Or grade. And you can do all the same activities as camping, the outdoor stuff, like they have campsite or fire pits, and usually like some sort of lake or woods. Don't worry about being too cold at night or getting wet in the rain. But again, like the weather worked out, so it was all fine.
Mhm.
Set up
Good
and
to
take
know.
down. So.
We have a lot of Airbnb cottages available in Ontario.
Mhm.
So that's what I find
Stuff.
people do.
Yeah.
So Nick, Did you do anything interesting this summer aside from move several times?
Uh, I mean, that was a big chunk of it.
Hmm.
Um, God, what did I do? I
See,
got
this is why we
way,
do this.
I got way into the conservative leadership results, like way into it. I was actually, I was actually planning on going to see an Edmonton FC game because I hadn't done that yet. But I came back from going to the Mood Art Conservatory. Oh, I got a membership to the Mood Art. That was fun. I'm so glad I've broke even because I'm not in Edmonton right now. But I absolutely adore the Mood Art Conservatory, also pronounced Mud Art.
I was
Highly
gonna ask if it's
encourage
spelled the way it sounds. Obviously, it's not.
Muttart. Just honestly, I always want to put the umlaut on the U there. Um, so I did that. That was fun. I encourage anyone in the Edmonton area to go see the conservatory about. Um, I spent some time unemployed and using Duolingo to learn French and German.
Nice.
Um, then I got employed again, and that quickly went by the wayside. Also, like they have a streak structure, and I actually talked to a friend about this who also used Duolingo because she moved to Quebec not knowing a word of French. And like the streak is great to keep you motivated when your streak is high. But once you break your streak, it's like, whatever. I already broke it.
Right.
Stupid streak. But
Break it as in not continue it.
correct.
Okay.
And I mean, I found it really useful just as a free tool. But you could also really tell that it was a computer trying to teach you how to speak French because there were a couple like ambiguous phrases like goodbye or I want the thing.
Right.
And I wrote down what I thought the answer should be, and it's like, no, that's not the answer. This is the answer. And then I'd pass it by Kaya, who can absolutely keep up in conversational French, or can even work in French. And she's
Right.
like, no, yeah, that's perfectly fine. I don't know why it's saying it's wrong. I'm like,
Hmm.
it's saying it's wrong because it's a computer, and computers are stupid.
I think the problem with learning a language, at least formally, is like in a classroom or app setting, I guess, a literal academic learning of the language, but people don't speak academically and just improper,
I
if that makes sense.
It's not that.
Like,
It's more like
let's put it this way. When I was learning Spanish in university as an elective, I would show my work to Maria, who is a native Spanish speaker, and she literally could not help me with it. She's like, I don't know any of this. Like it was all grammar based stuff. Like I mean, she knew some of it, but a lot of the stuff that I had issues with, she wasn't able to help me with it because it was very academic and like, oh, you know, the pronoun goes before the whatever, like, but using Spanish sentence structure. And that's just not how people generally speak, or if they do, they don't know like how to structure it in like a formal setting.
okay, so
Learn a language through an app, like you're gonna have those exceptions where people don't recognize it as a proper use.
I know that when I learned French in school, I had a similar kind of problem where, like, I know Spanish and French both have the formal second person plural, like formal verb. Wait, what do you call that? Noun. So in French, that would be vous when you're addressing someone formally. In Spanish, it's usted. And
Yep.
So I always learned because we were talking with like I never really spoke conversationally with my classmates, so I would never use the informal version, but I would talk to my teacher all the time. So the only like I learned how to conjugate vous really well, but I never really learned how to conjugate to. And so now that I'm in government at work in Ottawa, where
Oh, you mean like the everyday verbs that you use?
yeah. So
Yeah,
like
right.
I get very confused. I'm like, should I use vous in this situation? I probably shouldn't, but I'm much more comfortable with that person in verb tenses.
So we're hitting on a couple of issues here, and I find really interesting in the sense of linguistics. One issue, vous and tu, where tu is it's addressing someone informally, and vous can be either addressing someone formally or addressing a large number of people.
Yeah.
Vous and tu, especially in Quebec, apparently, like in Quebecois French, people will almost never tell you to address them as vous. Like if you address them as vous, the next sentence out of their mouth will be no, tu's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, not in English, but
exactly. Yeah, I've had that too.
I find that interesting. The other thing, Mike, you were talking about like a conversational native speaker going, I can't help you with this.
Yeah.
I took a government test on my English communication abilities, and part of it was like English grammar and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Chunk of that test was which of these sentences is better. And like literally I was reading through it and going like, I have no idea, but this sounds better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I think I managed to get like 40 out of 50. So I'm going to call that acceptable. But the other concept I ran into, which I find really interesting, is like the concept of High German versus German. Because within Germany, there are like 5 different ways to say the same thing, especially if you're talking like hello, goodbye, that kind of stuff. Or what was it? I think my friend was talking about Schweiz German or Swiss German.
Mm-hmm.
I probably just butchered that. But I was actually introduced to that concept when I worked at NRC because my boss was a Swiss German speaker. And we had someone come from Germany. And so I heard them talking, and it didn't sound like French, so I assumed it was German. But I asked my boss, I was like, oh, so you can speak in German to each other? And she's like, yeah, his High German's actually really good. And I was like, his what? Sorry? And it's like, well, I mean, all the Germans are so different that they kind of have a universally agreed upon High German that any German can use to speak to one another. Which I suppose we also have like the Queen's English in English.
Right. Except
But it's just, I find that a fascinating concept because, like, I mean, if you were in Australia, you could just start using colloquialisms, or even here, like, you could just start using colloquialisms until someone from a different country but does speak English would have no idea what you're talking about.
Isn't it basically just language without slang? Like in English, you could say "what's up" to someone and they'd know what you meant, but to a non-English speaker, they'd be like not knowing at all what you're saying, unless they've obviously heard that slang used before, right?
Yeah, I think you just have to like back off and start speaking really properly.
Yeah, like speak literally, basically, so that someone could directly translate and know what you mean.
Yes, speak properly and without colloquialism.
Sounds really boring.
Sorry, I wanted to try and do a live translation there. But no, like it literally, like the problem was I was saying things in literally a different way. Like, I want the peanut butter. You could say, I want the peanut butter, or I would like some peanut butter.
Right.
And it's fully the same thing. Like, I'm expressing the same idea. But the computer's like, no. You want to say this. Or like, the other one was il faut, which is the craziest grammatical structure, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
It wanted me to translate I'm thirsty. So I said j'ai soif. I have thirst, which is how you express that in French. And it was like, no, 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 no. The translation is il faut boire,
What?
which
Oh, that's wrong.
literally means, right? It literally means like
Like I
it
have the
is
need for a drink.
imperative. It is imperative to drink. Like it must
Oh,
drink.
Yeah.
So I
Nobody would
actually
ever
talked
say
to
that.
Kai about this, and I was like, well, that's the thing. And she's like, yeah, no, you don't say, like, you would say that if someone was literally like dying of thirst and they
Yeah.
need to drink.
Yeah.
Looked up a bunch of examples for me. Also, fun fact about the verb faut only ever translates with ill. Like, there's no other conjugation of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they use it a lot in things like legislation, like we must address how we treat the native peoples of Canada, like in contexts like that, or we must adapt to a changing climate,
Yeah.
but never any other way. So yeah, that was one where I was particularly frustrated with, or
Mhm.
like, or I'm hungry. So I would just say j'ai soif or j'ai faim. I was having is Duolingo is teaching Parisian French.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, hey, Rob, vous êtes belle. Or beau.
I don't think so. Yeah, there you go.
Sure. Vous êtes beau? Is that okay?
I think it's fine, but you don't have to use the formal.
Vous êtes un homme. No, I'm trying to address a point here.
Yeah.
Said I actually heard some people from France speaking, and I can kind of get the gist of what they're trying to say. And Kaya says the same thing. She would say, "Vous êtes un homme," and I'm like, so that's what Québécois French sounds like, eh?
Yeah. The problem that I have mostly in Ottawa, at least, is like because there's so much overlap between French and English speakers, a lot of French just borrows English whenever it wants to. And as a native English speaker who knows French, I never know when it's okay to borrow English. I'm like, can I just borrow all the English words in my French speaking and English? It seems reasonable to me that if it's easier for me to find an English word than a French word, I'll just use that. And so I end up never speaking French.
Like le weekend and le stop sign.
The parking, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't you mean
You've got to say it with the you've got to say it with the French accent though, Rob. That's what makes it.
Yeah.
So
So
it's the borrowed word, but said in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have el wifi, right?
El Wi-Fi?
It's not.
That's Spanish.
Yeah, not Wi-Fi, but Wi-Fi, right?
Well, clearly, those are two entirely different words.
It's true. Like, oh, Wi-Fi. See.
Is that a conversation you had? Like,
It is actually.
Wi-Fi? Wi-Fi? What? Wi-Fi?
Except it's the other way
Wi-Fi,
around.
see.
No, it's the other way around. They said Wi-Fi, and I was like, Wi-Fi? They're like, oh, Wi-Fi.
Oh, that's great.
Languages are fun.
Yeah. This is why it's so hard to learn them.
Yeah, totally.
Mm.
And in summation, that is what I did this summer.
The crazy thing?
Are we talking personal tech later? Because I can update that too. Okay.
Yeah, later.
The crazy thing, coming back or wrapping up language, I guess, is that as kids, and especially after having a kid, it's mind-boggling to think that you just naturally learn a language without really intentionally teaching or learning it. You just pick it up. I don't know. That's really weird.
Yeah.
You're just like looking down at your daughter being like, how are you doing this?
Yeah, it's like you're saying words.
Like I try and I try and I try and it's so hard and you're just figuring it out. They don't know what it's like to be old.
So before we wrap up next summer, you just put an item in here, conservative leadership results, Nick.
I got way into that.
You mentioned you got way into it. So obviously the first thing I did was go to vodkaandequations.blogspot.com and I see no posts about it. So I don't think you got that far into it.
Oh, that is a valid point. I actually thought about writing it, but I also thought that I don't know that what I have to say is all that valuable. But what I can tell you that the Conservative Party of Canada was going in a really exciting direction under Maxime Bernier, a very libertarian approach to things, which I mean is one thing that unites through all of the conservative subgroups. I would suppose, like, if you were talking in Alberta, you'd say like the Wild Rose and PC factions. Like everyone has a little bit of libertarian in them,
Right.
and I mean they went from who is this? Like I was really excited to see what his approach would be in government. Um, just because there's very little social conservatism, but if you're also going for true libertarianism, that manner of spending,
Mhm.
is where it's like, no, we don't spend a lot because we don't tax a lot.
What's libertarianism? For those that don't know, I know,
Uh,
but just for those that don't know.
Sure, Mike.
Libertarianism, like the long and short of libertarian would be it's very close to classical small L liberalism, where it's just like, are you hurting other people? No, do whatever the hell you want. And it also goes along with government spending. No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to tax you a whole lot either, but we're not going to spend a whole lot on non-essentials. So
Right.
it would have been a large dialing back of all form of taxation, but also a large dialing back of government spending. And I mean, or
So that's
aside, I think it would be interesting to see how that goes.
so that's opposed to the NDP model of promise lots of spending, but also don't have taxes, and then wonder, hey, oh, we don't have money for this. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, high taxing, high spending.
Well, there's this minimal taxing, high promises of spending, and then no spending.
I mean, they're spending. Oh, okay. Like,
No, like no, the whole thing, at least provincially, was both the PCs and the Wild Rose were saying, okay, well, in order to do this, we have to raise taxes. And NP's like, we're not going to raise taxes, but we'll also do this. And then the whole thing with like the math doesn't add up, and everyone's like, oh, well, the NDP has the right idea. And then later
oh,
down the
I
road,
don't know if you remember this, but I actually moved to Calgary right before that election. So I didn't hear like
oh,
almost anything leading up to the
okay,
election.
yeah, no, the whole thing
I
was
just
like,
got here and was like, "Oh, we're voting? Wow."
yeah. I think the NDP's excuse now is that they were budgeting or counting on like 60 or $70 oil prices, like from a royalty income. And everyone else was like, why would you expect that? Like, that's not even remotely close to what would be a realistic projection. And that's why the others weren't promising spending however much. So then when it came down to it, after everyone predictably or the predictable $45 to $50 oil prices, they're like, oh well, we don't have money for this. It's like, yeah, we could have told you that like 2 years ago. But anyway.
Yeah. Um I like if we were saying like in terms of ideology, I would compare it to like the Nordic model where their taxes are through the roof, but like everyone's happy and they spend just they spend like Paul Martin on 3 bottles of rye. Is my favorite description I'm borrowing from Rick Mercer.
Right.
Makes sense.
So with
Oh, and so
like,
yeah, go on.
coming back to libertarianism definition, you're saying as long as it doesn't hurt anyone, but generally high taxes really quote unquote hurt people. Tax structure, and is the idea that you're taxing people who can afford it to support those who can't.
With libertarianism or social democracy?
Yeah, with libertarianism.
Oh,
I'm wondering how
libertarianism.
close it comes to social democracy, I
Like,
guess, as you put it.
you don't help people. Like the government the idea with a lot of libertarian stuff is like the government shouldn't be involved in welfare and stuff like that. Like just take less money from people and that's your form of welfare.
Right. But usually it's not the people who need it that are benefiting from that.
Well, that would be my thought. Those represent my thoughts on the matter. So low tax, low spend. But I mean, you could also say like just raise the floor on non-taxable income. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff. Like the really hardcore libertarians also, they don't want you to like have the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, stuff like that, like regulatory bodies.
Mm.
It's like, no, just let the private industry figure it out. If someone screws up, people will stop buying from them. And then like, things will get better.
That it really strikes me how much like communism is a great idea in theory, but terrible in practice. Like libertarianism has that same thing to me. Like, yeah, that sounds great, except that fails horribly again and again and again. Like private industry doesn't correct itself. It just like people would die and then nothing would happen.
Well, yeah, I mean, before environmental regulations, lakes and rivers had a tendency to catch fire.
Yep.
And now we have environmental regulations, and that doesn't happen so much anymore. But I mean, there is an internal logic to it, and it could work if executed properly. I'm sure. It's just I don't think we've seen a really good example of it. But sorry, getting back to the actual results of the Conservative leadership. I mean, the race also saw Kelly Leach talking about screening people for Canadian values, which was
that's insane.
Widely criticized as being dog whistle politics.
Yep.
And I had to look this up because I didn't know what that meant. But
this
it means
was regarding citizenship status?
Yeah. Like if you're an immigrant, you should take a thing for Canadian values. And so the concept of dog whistle politics is you're saying something to someone, but only they can hear it. So like you're speaking to the what is often called the alt-right or bunch of racists, as they're also known. And saying like, we're going to make sure that people who aren't going to be good Canadians don't get into Canada. But then that also raises the question of like, what are Canadian values exactly?
Yeah.
What are you going to screen for? And she just like, Canadian values.
Oh, so like the people
Canadians.
who support them know what that means. And everyone who doesn't hears that and is like, oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea. But they're not really...
I don't see a problem with that intrinsically. Yeah. No, that's dog whistle.
I hadn't heard that term before.
That's
cool.
A criticism of Harper when he proposed the barbaric cultural practices hotline. Where like, you could say, well, if someone is engaging in barbaric cultural practices, it's probably a good idea to have a hotline. I mean, there's also the police that you could call, but but that's not specifically a barbaric cultural practices hotline. So, I mean, that's also, a lot of fear related to immigrants has to do with things like honor killings, where you'll kill family members if they do something that you think will bring dishonor to your family, which is done in some places. Yeah. And I think has happened once or twice here, but honestly, we have the police for that. So
and that isn't murder.
That's not unique to any culture or religion. Like there are people who are killed as a result of their Christian families disapproving of something they do. It's just that.
Well, I think the point is that it's justified. Well, no, it's that the people who do it justify it by saying that this is why we did it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Based on cultural acceptance in other parts of the world.
Right.
Yeah. So maybe you could screen those people for Canadian values.
Right.
My tongue is in my cheek. That was very sarcastic. I'm sorry. But yeah, so there was Kelly Leach, and like, honestly, that and a couple other things that have been happening, like especially after, what was it? The Conservative leadership in Alberta, I was really concerned about the rise of this like alternative right group, as they would call themselves, also known as a bunch of racist assholes.
Yes.
But there's a lot of hateful rhetoric and violence and threats of violence, like all the people proposing that we assassinate Rachel Notley because that is a thing that happens.
Mm.
I'm tremendously concerned about that and like the rise of people like Kelly Leach, because it means that there are people in Canada who have these incredibly hateful views. And I think it's very easy to go down a very dark path as a country if you start appealing to those people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it
And
starts to get normalized.
yeah, and I mean, I think that to a low level, it's always there, always rise when it's given a voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just up to the silent majority to strongly express their opinions that that's wrong and that's not how we want to conduct ourselves as a society.
Yeah.
And so, well, that was part of why I got way into it, because you see some warning signs around, like a lot of the people campaigning for, I think it was Kenny's stuff, like they were pretty rough on a couple of the other candidates. Like, oh, who was it? Like one of the, oh, why can't I think of her name? I think Sandra Jansen, she was she was chased down a hallway by some Kenny supporters at one point and just asked them to leave her alone, and they wouldn't. They just kept harassing her. And so things like that. I just was very concerned. And then in the end, the Conservatives went with the boring option and went for Andrew Scheer. And there was just this tremendous battle of ideologies, and they were like, no, we're going for Stephen Harper with a smile.
Have you guys heard of the paradox of tolerance?
No.
It's
No,
the idea
not by
that
name.
if a society or a group of people is endlessly tolerant, they will eventually succumb to intolerance from the people who are intolerant. And so in order to have a tolerant society, that society must be intolerant of intolerance.
That's interesting.
It's a like a philosophical paradox that was proposed at the end of the Second World War. And basically all these, like, we're talking about like the Canadian version of this, but in the States there are all kinds of so-called, another dog whistle, free speech protests going on, and then these much larger counter protests forming of people who are trying to be intolerant of intolerance. And how you can't just sit there and say, no, we have to be tolerant of people, even if they're saying things that are hateful. Like, no, you actually can't, because if you just keep tolerating it and they are not tolerating, eventually that any freedom of tolerance you have will be taken away by the intolerant people.
Right. I think I've heard of it more, the concept of free speech, and how people say, oh, well, it's a free country, or, it's my right to speak. It's like, yeah, but you're also going to have consequences for what you say. So you can say whatever you want, but that doesn't mean there's no consequences, right?
Yeah.
So it's along the same lines as like that, yeah, hateful or improper things go without consequence. Even if it's not legal punishment, there needs to be some sort of repercussion for those actions and those words. Say it, that doesn't mean that you can say it without.
Yeah.
Well, also, the Constitution of the United States only protects free speech in that the federal government can't stop you from saying things.
Yeah. And that doesn't extend. I believe there are exceptions about hate speech where you actually can't, like, you can say whatever you want other than these very specific things. And so that's where kind of dog whistling comes into play there, where they're not being hateful unless you know what their coded language actually is trying to say.
Mm.
And so when you hear
Right.
at this point in the United States, if you hear that there is a quote free speech protest going on, that is actually a dog whistle for something much more sinister. And that's why there are these counter protests popping up. It's an insanely confusing time to live in, because words are constantly changing meaning depending on who's using them. It's very frustrating to try to keep up with the news, and often much easier not to.
The crazy thing is, coming back to dog whistling, is pretty frequently used by like terrorist groups when they're trying to organize and recruit and all that kind of stuff, right? So it's like it's always had this more sinister or malicious intent to it. Like, I don't think anyone would dog whistle for good, right? Unless you're in a persecution-based society where like you get persecuted for being a certain way in a, like trying to, support women's rights, right?
Yeah.
And then you have to start dog whistling like for those types of things. But generally, like, you're going to be dog whistling because otherwise you get in trouble if you said it outright.
Yeah, there have been a lot of like really interesting memetics, which is what I'm calling this study of memes, going around this, like with the whole rise of this, like basically they call themselves the alt-right, but basically white supremacists, coming up, where like there's that meme about I forget what it was, but it was like someone. I'm gonna have to go look it up now, but like the "this is the future liberals want" meme, where
Right.
a picture of something that's like, again, going back to libertarianism, if you're not hurting anyone, like who cares? Kind of let people be people, and how it's like, yeah, that actually kind of is the future we want. Like, there's nothing wrong with anything that's in this picture, and
I have not seen that one.
I'm gonna have to go find it because I'm trying to remember now, but so much stuff has happened in that time. I'm gonna have to go find Know Your Meme. There it is. Yeah, it's a
pretty versatile meme, I think.
It is,
like, you can pretty much put "this is what liberals want" on whatever picture.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the future liberals want. And then the post, the original picture is just so funny because it's posted by, I assume this is like a 4chan, 4chan's board. And we're just like, yeah, actually that, like, people being able to just peacefully coexist, being who
I'm looking
they
at
are.
it too, and I'm like, yeah, I don't see anything wrong with this.
It seems fine. Nobody's doing anything wrong.
Oh, the thing on the bus. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So yeah, this whole summer, like spring, summer of 2017, has just been trying to figure out what is going on with seemingly two sides of society that are completely in opposition to each other.
I'm just loving the other examples of the future that liberals want, by the by.
Yeah, it's a very good meme. And
it's tremendous.
There are lots of them like this.
I've been seeing a lot of, like, I don't go on Twitter. Well, I've been going on it more recently because it's Twitter. But before, I tried to like moderate it more in the height of like it was like every single tweet was related to that. I'm like, this is too much.
Yeah.
Now it's basically just like a back and forth flame war.
Yeah.
But I'm basically only getting one side of it because of who I follow, which I'm not complaining about. Yeah. But it's more like I can only take so much all at once.
Yeah.
But I see a lot of the, I can't believe the site is free type tweets, because there's just like so many examples of like quality people being owned or self-owning.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, it's good humor and stuff, but it's all centered around this, like you're saying, like just this whole weird kind of, I'd say, of just weirdness.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think you're really exposed to it outside of Twitter.
You can be, really. Like you see it pop up every once in a while on Facebook. These social circles will clash and there'll just be this big argument, but it definitely happens more often.
It can't as easily like Yeah, it can't as easily enter your filter bubble on Facebook.
It,
Like all it takes on Twitter is for someone that you
Yeah.
follow to retweet something. There isn't
Mhm.
the same kind of mechanic with Facebook as much, or at least it's not used as often. Like there's obviously sharing posts, but that's not really what Facebook is used for.
Right. Well, at least not by us. Like there are that's what I'm
Maybe,
saying is
I
that
guess.
there are places where those social circles are more likely to overlap. And anytime someone decides, hey, I'm actually going to comment on this now, and then get into some big dispute, which I have done several times and regretted every
Right.
one.
Well, for one, I block people that
Yeah.
occurs with on Facebook.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think the main thing I get is like the religious stuff.
Mhm.
My Facebook that are various degrees of religiousness, and they'll share something, be like, "Oh, amen" or whatever, and it's like, okay, like scroll.
The thing that gets me with that is it seems to often, at least not every time, come from something where like I think to myself, like, I'm not a devoutly religious person. I've read parts of the Bible when I was quite a bit younger. But I'm like, I'm pretty sure I could pull a direct quote from the Bible that says the exact opposite of what you're describing right now.
Mhm.
And so like people will twist religion into anything that they need. And
Well, it's
it
built
kind of
on
just
that, really.
proves, well, I guess so, yeah.
I mean, yeah, most religions are a group of people with a shared morality
Yeah.
that, will read the Bible accordingly.
Yeah. And like it was built on priests cherry picking things they wanted to include.
Yeah.
Right. So
Have you read about the
Anyway.
Book of Eve? Whew, that's a doozy.
I haven't, but I can only
No, I
imagine.
haven't.
Oh, you can only read about it because they actually destroyed all the copies.
Jeez.
Yeah. Oh, there are a few articles.
Oh no.
It's pretty interesting.
Can
No, there's
I say-
also things like judge not lest ye be judged,
Yeah.
and that which you do to the least of my brothers, you do unto me.
Mhm. Yeah, I have some problems with some of these things that take place, but there's only so much you can do. I don't know what you guys have. I've
true.
really started reflecting every time I read something on the internet, usually to do with politics, but just in general. I'm now almost, especially if it is a point of view that I agree with, I look at it and I'm like, wait, just re-examine this once in my mind and make sure that I'm not just confirming my bias. Like, first of all, is this even a thing? Like, try to actually go and not just read the headline, but read what's actually inside any, like, whether it be a video, whether it be like a news article.
Yeah.
Am I confirming a bias? And if so, am I actually sure that there's something wrong here? And a surprising amount of the time, I'm not sure that other people on any side of the political spectrum are actually doing that. But I'm also surprised at how often that even something that confirms my bias is actually just inherently true. So, for instance,
listen to someone biased towards facts.
yeah,
Rob,
exactly.
facts can be used to prove anything that's even remotely true. Facts schmacked.
Yeah,
Rob, I think what you're saying
Yeah.
is like the ones where it says, "Oh, this person was, whatever." Like so and so said whatever to this person because they were right, and there's like all the reaction like, "Oh my god, I can't believe it." Like, oh, like, and it's like, well, yeah, like you said, did that actually happen? Is this
Mhm.
being taken out of context? Like, what's the story behind it? Like, trying to be critical of that instead of just like and retweet.
Yeah.
I agree.
And it's hard because it's almost like there needs to be rules of engagement when it comes to the news now. But it's really hard, just like in an actual war where you're fighting people and people die. It's hard to patrol that. And it's very easy for somebody to break the rules. And so even if you kind of follow those best practices, not everyone's going to do that, and you end up losing because of that. It's a very hard time to try to be like a fact-based human because there's just so much opinion and lies swirling around.
And also nukes from North Korea.
Yes, maybe.
Possibly.
I mean, yeah. As far as I know, we're like talking about North Korea. They have been making threats for years, if not decades, and haven't actually followed through on anything. Like so far they've been literally all talk.
I mean,
and so like I'm concerned. I'm very concerned.
And
but,
firing missiles into the Sea of Japan, or is it past?
Yeah.
Pacific.
I agree. It's very concerning, but responding by trying to, like, I get calling their bluff, but I don't know if I understand making an even bigger bluff back if you're not actually prepared to back it up. It's obviously a very hard diplomatic game, but it's hard to think about, oh, this is just a game when there's actual people's lives at stake that aren't you.
It's true.
This is basically what my summer has been like, to be honest. Like I wrote some stuff in the thing, but honestly, most of my summer has been like, what's reality anymore? Like, can I trust facts? And it turns out,
I think at this point, it's all just surreal now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, at first it was shocking, but then the more you see it, the more it's like, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
And now it's just, that's where I'm at now.
Mm-hmm.
Who was it that said, like, you need...
I heard 10-year-olds swearing on the playground yesterday, and I was appalled. Where did you get those dirty mouths? And then I remembered the internet.
Yep.
I was like, oh, makes sense.
So I feel like we have the opportunity to take this home. All I'm going to say, the highlight of my summer is that I went to the US to see the eclipse, and I'll say that I talked all about it on the Thought Grapes YouTube video. So if you go to thoughtgrapes.com, you will find my thoughts on it. I talked for 20 minutes with lots of visuals about the eclipse. And I feel like, with your permission, again, maybe we need a motion for this. We can end on possibly the most important thing, peanut butter. Does that sound okay with you, Nick?
Yes. I think that's a fabulous way to end this.
So you were eating peanut butter as this episode began.
Mm-hmm.
And why don't you describe the type of peanut butter you're eating and why you think it is the best?
I was eating chunky peanut butter.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first degree of inspection we were going to go towards.
Yes.
I feel chunky peanut butter is superior based on texture and that additional level of interest past flavor.
Mike, what are your thoughts on peanut butter? Specifically, the chunky versus smooth question.
I tried chunky.
Uh-oh.
It did not stick, so to speak.
Wait, you mean it did stick? And that's why it was bad?
It was, no. You ruined a quality pun, Rob.
Mike, are you a smoother?
I am a smoother.
Wow.
Chunky's too bitter for me.
Bitter?
What?
Just the chunky parts, they like clash with the creaminess, and it's not enjoyable. It's like, pick one. Be either crunchy or smooth.
Crunchy.
Don't be both.
So what I'm hearing, is that what I see is the future liberals want.
Yeah.
Chunks of peanut alongside creamy, smooth peanut butter. And you just can't bear it, can you? You just want a melting pot, don't you, Mike?
No. It's like,
if
it was a layer...
I rated with you. We got Zapdos and Raikou and Articuno. Well, you got Articuno and Lugia.
If it was a layer of crunchy, crushed up peanuts, sans butter, it would be great. If it was a layer of smooth, creamy, buttery peanut butter, that'd be great. I don't want it mixed. My mouth cannot decide.
Your mouth cannot handle. Let's be honest.
It can't. It can't. I fully admit it cannot handle it. It's just too confusing. So I went back to smooth. But I did try.
Wow.
It's documented on Facebook and everything.
Oh, you better get the answer to the
not
next question right,
documented.
Mike.
Mentioned.
Oh man.
So
it's like with black coffee. I tried it and it didn't work.
As you can probably predict from my visceral reaction to Mike's incorrect opinion, chunky peanut butter is obviously the answer to this first question. I don't understand. Like, peanuts are the ultimate snack. Again, maybe you could dispute that, but
Debatable,
I don't think so.
But okay.
But why wouldn't you want bits of peanut butter? Like, peanut butter, good. Chunks of peanuts, good. Why wouldn't you want to mix them?
True.
Mm-hmm.
Although I took a long absence there to deal with Mike's, let's call it disapprobation of black coffee. Black coffee is the ultimate in homogeneity,
Okay.
Mike.
Black coffee is fine.
There's not chunks of coffee bean in the coffee. I don't know what your objection is.
Okay, so now you're building up a straw man for one. Black coffee
And I
is fine.
am prepared to tear that straw man down, sir.
Black coffee is fine if it's made to the proper strength. So like Latin America has this thing called tinto, which is basically like weak black coffee. And it's good. It's fine. Like it's almost refreshing. Right? It's like you sit down for a cup of coffee with someone, but they don't make it strong. You don't put cream or sugar. You put maybe a bit of sugar. You don't add cream. Unless like café con leche, which is like its own thing. But so you have a cup of coffee, it's generally black and it's a bit weaker, and that's fine. That is what it is. Like I have that for what it is. But when I'm talking just a cup of coffee from wherever, it's like I gotta put stuff in it. I can't drink it black.
So wait, where are we saying wherever? Like it's
like a typical coffee place that serves coffee at regular strength. Unless they have like a carafe of weaker coffee that they reserve for people who drink it black.
So, okay, so I can weigh in slightly here because you can get very different cups of black coffee from very different places.
That's what I don't like, though. I can't hang my hat on a good cup of coffee if I rely on it being good black.
Just hold on.
Okay,
hold on. We're getting there.
I'll let you.
So second cup or Starbucks, I can drink it black because there's enough going on in there that I can get behind it. But a place like diner coffee, let's say, I'm the most frustrating customer at a diner when I order coffee because they'll say, "What do you want to drink?" I say coffee. They say, "Do you take it black?" And I say, "I don't know. What's the brew strength like?" And they're like,
and they're like, "Get out."
I pushed the button this morning. What more do you want?
I honestly think if they had the power, I would have been ejected several times by now because they go, I don't know. Like, what do you want?
It's like I push a button.
And so, yeah. So then I taste it, and if it's strong enough that I can like actually taste the delicious coffeeness in there, I'm okay. But if it's weak and it's just like coffee ran through there on stilts and I'm not actually sure what I'm drinking, then I will take cream and sugar because then there's some actual flavor in there.
See,
which I think is the opposite of what you're proposing.
I think that issue can be dealt with by, like, it's obviously easy enough at a takeout place because you just taste the coffee, and if it's not great, then you just add whatever to it at the little condiment bar. At a diner, just like, won't they normally bring cream and sugar on the side and bring it to you? Anyway,
well,
so just
they ask first,
right? So then say yes, and then they'll bring it to you. And you can drink it black if you want. This seems like a very easily solvable problem, Nick. Instead of tormenting them with ridiculous questions of brew strength.
Well, it's pointless for them to bring the stuff out of the fridge if I don't need it.
I assure you, they're wasting more time dealing with your questions than just bringing the stuff over and taking it back if they need to.
That's probably true.
I mean, they would have to take it back anyways.
Exactly.
Oh, and you also, if they do bring it to you up front, you have the opportunity, once you get the coffee, if it is good enough, you don't need cream and sugar, you can say, actually, thank you, but I don't need this. Your coffee is excellent without it.
Exactly. Heck, you've solved your problem. Are we done with peanut butter now?
No, we didn't even get to the
No,
real
I'm gonna move
question.
past this.
We are moving on to the second column of the matrix here.
Mhm.
So again, Nick, I think I know the answer to this question, but what is your answer to which is the best peanut butter? Is it natural peanut butter that has only one ingredient, or the monstrosity that is regular craft peanut butter?
You guys aren't gonna like my answer.
Okay.
We've
So
given up on you, Mike.
let's do the thing that drives Kaya nuts when I talk and break that down a little further. Are we
Okay.
actually talking like on a continuum of pure peanut butter to craft?
No,
Or are we talking the continuum of pure peanut butter to craft and craft-like products?
craft and craft like. It doesn't have to be that specific sub brand.
Okay. In that case, I almost always go for craft and craft-like.
Oh,
Interesting.
I now I make
ooh.
hummus fairly regularly. Not so much right now, but I have made it in the past with fair regularity. And I've used tahini, and I'm fine with stirring everything up before spreading. That's not the issue. But I would rather just not stir it. Also, specifically, I find craft itself very, very sweet.
That's the sugar.
And so I don't, yeah, I don't like craft. I actually used to prefer Skippy because they don't put as much sugar in there.
Yeah.
And so I used to do Skippy. I've recently tried Planters, and I like Planters peanut butter.
Hmm.
That said, the craft peanut butter that we accidentally got light peanut butter, which was low fat peanut butter, and just what's the point?
Yeah.
It was
It's
just
true.
hollow. It lacked peanutty goodness, and I don't know why you would just anyway, it was stupid. I hated it. But I also found I had to stir that one constantly. At which point it's like, why am I even bothering with this? No, I know why I was bothering with it.
Yeah.
Because we already had it, and I didn't want to go buy like another kilo or two of it.
Mm-hmm. So I feel like we don't even have to ask Mike here because clearly he also made the wrong choice.
So me not liking peanut soup
Mm.
can be held against me.
If you do it
Just
right, it's not
For the
peanut
record.
soup.
Oh well, okay. So I have a question for you guys, since you've judged me on my peanut butter choices. Where do you guys land on the salad dressing selection?
What?
Do you go refrigerated or the
Crap.
next to the ketchup on the shelf across from the crackers?
I go for Renee's, which must be refrigerated because it doesn't have preservatives in it.
Mm.
Rob?
I go for the only real salad dressing I have, which is ranch, which I use in my wraps.
Jesus
And-
Christ, Rob.
What?
Let them finish. That is potentially not the worst part.
Okay.
No, it's not the worst part. I have to say I also go with Kraft, but I just don't care about my
How
dressings.
dare you? How dare you judge me on my peanut
So,
butter?
What I want to say is that
Like a savage, you grab your salad dressing from the unrefrigerated section of the grocery store.
I put it in the fridge after I get it.
Oh, good.
Well, that completely makes up for your disgusting palate.
I hope you like your vinegar sauce.
It's great. I just want to say I don't mean to denigrate Kraft itself as a company, because the peanut butter that I get is Kraft, but it is natural and chunky, because Kraft is not a bad company. Far from it. It's just that they have now gotten on board the correct peanut butter train and make a line of natural peanut butters as well that are just peanuts. I don't want my peanut butter sullied by any extra salt or sugar, and I do not care about salad dressings enough to spread them.
Have you had Renee's Mighty Caesar?
Yeah.
And you still don't
It's
care?
delicious.
Well, I don't really have Caesar salads that often, if at all, at home.
What do you
put
what
it
do you
you
dip your
put it
pizza
on your
crust into,
wrap.
Rob?
It's so much better than ranch. I actually loved ranch as a child, and then the first time I tried Caesar salad dressing, I was basically over ranch forever. Anytime from that point forward that I had ranch dressing, I was like, huh, this is pretty sweet. I would probably rather have Caesar salad dressing on this.
That's a fair point.
So as far as ranch goes, you have to be careful because in the refrigerated aisle, they'll have home style ranch and then ranch.
Okay.
And home style ranch is like extra onions, which is fine if that's what you want, but you just got to be careful. Because it's like, I tried to say, man, this is a lot of onion in it. And then I looked at it and there's like a couple onions on the front of the home style ranch jar. So I was like, okay, that must be the difference.
So we're
give the refrigerator a try, Rob.
We are all over the spectrum on this.
Yeah, we are. It turns out peanut butter is complicated, but I do still feel that I am the one true peanut king in this, and nothing any of you can say will change my opinion, having tried all other peanut butters.
Rob, let me ask you a question here. Let me just add something on here. Made carbonara the last couple times. Fried up the bacon. Got the eggs and the pepper ready. I got the Parmesan ready. Mixed it all together. But when I went to eat it, the taste, and I remember this taste from all through university because I had this problem all through university. The taste was a little bit hollow. That's the best way I can describe it. It was a little bit hollow. And so I added a touch of salt, and the flavor was right where it needed to be.
Yeah.
That's where I want my peanut butter. I want my peanut butter right where it needs to be.
In that case, I would suggest next time, when your peanut butter runs out, get some natural peanut butter. It doesn't have to be a big thing. Get a little thing if you want to try.
Can I add xanthan gum if I don't want to stir it every time?
Sure. Or you can add, and you can add some salt to the peanut butter if you want. But at that point, you get to control your levels and not have sodium overload every time you want to eat a sandwich or toast.
I mean, at that point, I actually want a food processor. I've wanted a food processor for years. I think I should just roast some peanuts in the oven, throw that into a food processor, and just make the damn thing myself.
Yeah, absolutely you should.
So despite our differences on peanut butter and salad dressing, I think we can all agree Nick wins when it comes to bread.
Yes.
Because if you haven't tried his homemade sourdough.
All right, Mike's tried that now.
I still think about that bread. Grocery store, going through the bread section, I'm like, why even bother?
Oh, Mike.
Well, we can all agree, even if we disagree on peanut butter, we can agree on apparently that bread, although I have not tried it. I believe you. But we can all agree to condemn white supremacy and not much else, I guess.
I wish the most of our problems was grocery store choices.
Agreed.
That'd be great.
One day in the not too distant future, this will be the height of our difference. And I celebrate that.
That is the future liberals want.
It's true.
It really is.
Well, on that note, I have to go. So if you guys feel you want to do an after show, I would be fine with that.
I have to get ready to go to Banff this afternoon.
Wow, that's fun.
We're actually dropping someone off for an extended meeting, like pre-conference extended meeting. But we're going early enough that I can actually see Banff for the second time this year. Because having seen it only once is far too few times for an entire
Mhm.
summer.
Agreed. Okay, well, in that case, thank you all for
To be
listening.
forever.
Yeah, to this episode of Seeds of Thought. I hope you enjoy it, episode 3. And at some point, we'll be back recording another episode of some show, but who knows? We did not spend any time figuring out what that's going to be. That's a project for us in the next couple weeks.
Coming up on the second episode of Thought Grapes. What are we doing? What will we be doing? What? What, I ask you, what?
See you next time.
Bye.